So, unless System 76 decides to yet again delay Cosmic and PopOS 24.04, it should release today as the day I'm filming this video to make sure I'm as up to date as possible. This is a very important thing for the Linux desktop ecosystem. This is a very good first draft for a desktop environment, but it is very much a first draft in a lot of areas. So we're gonna talk about everything that Cosmic offers, what I think about it, and also what I think about PopOS 24.04, which is the main vessel to use Cosmic, although it is also on other distros. And we'll also talk about our sponsor. So this video is sponsored by ProtonVPN. You all know what a VPN does and why you should probably have one handy, if only to just watch stuff that is not available in your region, to just secure your internet traffic, make sure that your internet access provider cannot really see what you're doing, or just to feel protected when you're using public Wi-Fi. This is just an important tool to have on your computer, and personally the one I use is ProtonVPN. It comes as standard in your free Proton account, meaning you also get mail, calendar, contacts, a password manager, some storage space, a Google Docs and Google Sheets alternative now, so it is pretty complete already, but of course there are paid plans to get access to faster servers and more privacy-related options. I do use ProtonVPN quite often. I absolutely love what they're doing, and as always the link is down in the description. Okay, so first I installed PopOS 24.04 on the Framework Laptop 16 that I have had at home ever since they sent me the review unit. They never asked for it back, and I'll be honest, I just like it, so I'm just going to keep it around until they want it back. The install was fine with the usual PopOS installer based on Elementary's installer. It's smooth, it's fast, it doesn't really have any big options for partitioning. You'll have to do that manually if you want something other than the basic setup, but it's just smooth and easy. And once you're done, you have a first-time setup wizard, which is also handy. It gives you access to enabling some accessibility features. It lets you change the interface size with fractional scaling, and also an additional scaling factor to really tweak how things are sized. I personally went with just a plus 5% over the regular 100% scaling. You can also toggle the magnifier, connect to a Wi-Fi network. You pick your language, your keyboard layout, which you already picked during install, but I suppose that's for OEM installs, since System 76 will sell computers with PopOS and Cosmic pre-installed, and they don't know which keyboard layout people will want on their devices. Then you can pick the time zone, the appearance. You have a few options here like dark mode, light mode, a bunch of various colored variants that you can preview by just clicking. Although unfortunately I couldn't find a way to get back to those preset appearances. Afterwards you will have to create them yourselves using colors. Maybe I missed it, but yeah, if you don't pick one right there, you'll have to recreate it manually yourself afterwards. You can also pick a specific layout. You can have the bottom panel only, as in a Windows-like taskbar, or you can have a dock and a top panel, which is what I went with. It's the default for Cosmic. They also explain a few of the features that they offer, and then you're done, and we can take a look at the actual Cosmic desktop in its first stable version. Okay, so Cosmic, by default, is just GNOME with a dock. It is the exact same layout, but they do have a lot more stuff under the hood than some of the stuff GNOME offers by default. So you have that top panel, which offers your workspaces, which you can navigate. By default, they're horizontal, they're vertical, but you can switch them to horizontal mode if you want. You've got your applications grid, complete with various folders that you can create and where you can reorder stuff and search. You've got your date and time panel, which is your mini calendar, and that's it. And you've got your system tray on the right with the usual applets and also some system options. You also have the tiling options up there, which we'll talk about in a minute in this video. The dock is relatively basic by default. You have a list of applications, a right-click menu gives you various context options, which might or might not be very useful in a lot of cases. You can reorder apps by just dragging icons around, although it does not feel very smooth. It just jitters all around the place. In the current up-to-date version of PopOS, it doesn't feel that fantastic. Now, the desktop itself does support desktop icons, which some people will absolutely love. You can just reorder them, you can move them, you can interact with them just as you would with the Cosmic File Manager as well, which is pretty nice. I personally don't really use that feature in the slightest. I don't like having icons on my desktop, but a lot of people do, so that's nice. And on the right click on the desktop, you also have a few options to sort things, to access some settings, and also to change what you want to see on that desktop, mounted drives, the trash icon. You can change the icon sizes as well, and you can change the spacing of the grid for those icons, which is all nice, it's useful, it works. Now, where you have all your applets, it's the standard feature set. It also works as a system tray, so applications will have their icons there. Here you can see VLC and OBS working as intended. You have a keyboard layout indicator, some accessibility related things, the tiling options, which we'll discuss later, all the sound options that you might want for microphone input and audio. You also have your Bluetooth, your internet access and connections. You have everything related to your battery and power and the display brightness. You have notifications with a do not disturb toggle and the system stuff. It's all very basic and usual, and it works. It's not missing anything in there. Now, if you press Super, you get a quick launcher that lets you start applications quickly. It also lets you switch to currently open windows, which is pretty nice. But also, if you type a question mark, you have a bunch of options that you can do. For example, searching for files, searching the web, opening recently opened documents, running terminal commands, and they give you the syntax so you can know how to work it. I personally prefer stuff like KRunner, which is a bit more intelligent, which will automatically detect that what you're typing is a command. So if I type sudo apt update, I would like the launcher to automatically detect I'm trying to run a command. I don't want to have to type run before it, so it runs it, but it's not bad, and the fact that they automatically tell you when you press super that you can type this question mark for more options, it's nice. You also have keyboard shortcuts around it. It's a nice launcher, it does its job, it's good. Finally, for launching apps, it's your usual app grid. It's the same stuff that GNOME offers, except it's in a little panel instead of being full screen. You have pre-created folders with the default Cosmic apps and some stuff that PopOS adds that comes from GNOME or other desktops. You can reorder icons from a folder to another if you want. That works fine. You can create new groups, new folders if you prefer, and you have the usual right-click options when you right-click any of those applications. It's fine. Again, it works well. You also have a search feature that you also have when you press the super key. It's not a very unusual layout. It's the exact same thing that PopOS offered when it used GNOME. They just replicated that because they already had spent a lot of time designing that. It's basically GNOME plus a few extensions in terms of the layout, but you do have your desktop icons, you do have a bunch of options and possible configurations, and as we'll see, there's a lot more tweaking available under the hood for the look and feel and for the settings. So that's what we're going to talk about now. So first, visually, you have your usual wallpaper, which you can change. It works as you'd expect. You don't have thousands of options. It's a slideshow or a single image. You can add your own. There's no video or stuff like that, super advanced stuff, but that's for later if they ever add that. In terms of appearance, there's also some quite good things that you can look at. Obviously, you've got your usual dark mode and light mode, which auto switches on the fly. You've got your accent color support, which will only appear in selected elements and highlights around windows. It's not overbearing, you don't have that accent color literally everywhere, and you can also pick a bunch of colors if you want, which is very nice because you can have an automatic color for all the containers, which is the sidebars, these little bars that pop up on top, the sidebar in the file manager. You can change the window background as well if you want. The more important colors are all pickable by you. The only problem I see is that they don't really offer you the other options that you get at the startup. They're not there. You'll have to recreate them yourself, so we'll see where it goes. I kind of like the system. It looks good. I think it's kind of interesting visually, but you can also make something absolutely horrendous that looks like Garbo, but that's on you. You can fix it by changing the colors, so it's not like the system pushes you towards something that is utterly broken visually. Now you do have more options around that. First, if you don't like everything being rounded, you can square it. So you'll square automatically all the window corners, you'll square the dock background, and you'll square all the selected items everywhere. If you prefer your rounded stuff, you have two options. You have one that is slightly rounded, which I prefer, or a very rounded one. You also have options for the density of the interface. If you prefer something like GNOME, you can go with a more spacious interface layout, which will just add a bunch of padding around menus, around elements, when you go into settings and stuff like that. It's just a little bit more space. If you go into the comfortable layout, that's the default. It's more akin to something that you would see on Mint, for example, or you can even have a super compact layout if you want to jam-pack information on your screen. Personally, I think the default is fine. The spacious one is a bit too wide for me. You can also change the fonts, you can change the icon theme as well, and you can automatically apply your theme to GNOME applications. Now, this is something I was very curious to look at. Do apps from GNOME and KDE look at home, or at least fine, on PopOS and Cosmic, or are they utterly broken? Because you're gonna use a lot of GNOME and KDE apps, because Cosmic doesn't have a lot of their own. So this is GNOME Calendar installed from FlatHub, and as you can see, it does follow the color settings that I set. It has the right colored hint, the right accent color, the right background color, even the right window buttons compared to a Cosmic application, although they do have a circle around it in their default theme. It is still a GNOME app, it is going to follow GNOME's interface conventions, but it works and it is themed. Now, if you do change the theme, it's not going to switch it automatically. You're gonna have to close the app and reopen it for that to work, which can be annoying, but who changes their theme all the time? I don't think that's gonna be a big issue. Now, this one is GNOME Calendar from the repos, so it is not a Flatpak, it is an older version of GNOME Calendar, and as you can see, it also follows accent color and background colors and all of the icons. And again, if you auto-switch the theme, it's not going to switch it automatically for these applications. But they do look pretty nice on Cosmic, they look integrated, it's not a problem. So that's really nicely done. But what about KDE applications? That's a lot less good. This is a Flatpak version of Dolphin, and as you can see, it is not themed. You do have the hint around the window, which is handled by the Cosmic Window Manager, but everything else is just the KDE theme. It's not going to grab your colors, it's not going to theme things, it's not going to change your icons either, so this is not really working in terms of integration with the system, but it's not disastrous. Like, it doesn't look at home, but it doesn't look broken. Now, this is the Dolphin version installed from PopOS's repos, and don't do that. It is utterly broken. It doesn't even follow dark mode. It doesn't follow the accent color either. The theme is broken. The icons are broken. So you can install Flatpak versions of GNOME apps, repo versions of GNOME apps, although these are going to be pretty old. I would recommend you use the Flatpak versions. If you use KDE applications, don't get them from the repos on PopOS currently. They are utterly broken and Cosmic doesn't theme them. This might come in the future, but it just doesn't look that good. GNOME apps are going to look way more at home on Cosmic. Now let's move on to how you can customize that entire desktop, because you can change a lot of stuff to suit your workflow. So first is the top panel. You can of course automatically hide it, you can change its position if you prefer it on the right, on the left, at the bottom, on top, whatever you want. I think it just works on top as it is. You can decide on which display you want to show it if you have multiple ones. You can decide to have a gap, so it's a floating panel like what KDE offers. You can decide to center it if you don't want it to be fully extended. You can have it in light mode where the rest of your desktop is in dark mode, or you can match the desktop. You can change the size of that panel if you want, so you can make it very big or way smaller. You decide what you want to do. And of course, you can configure all the applets. You can reorder them. For example, if I'd like to have the date and time at the bottom, I can absolutely have that and have that there instead of being centered. That works. You can add applets that are only in the dock, like for example access to the app tray, to your minimized windows, to your workspaces, whatever else. You can completely remove the dock if you don't want it to put everything else up top. You have the exact same configuration options for the dock itself. You can decide to not have one, you can auto-hide it, you can change the position on screen, you can also decide to have a floating dock if you want, you can extend it all the way to all screen edges. It's the exact same stuff, and you can have most of the applets that you have on the top panel in the dock as well. For example, if I want the sound applet on the dock, I can have it. It doesn't look all that great, but I can have it, and that's nice. It's a bit more customization. It looks decent, although you can clearly see it was designed to have that two-panel system. You can also just go to having a single panel that has everything at the bottom or the top. In terms of window management, you can choose what the super key does. By default, it's to open the launcher, but you can have it just like in GNOME to open the workspaces or to open the applications. You decide what you prefer. You can also decide to hide the hint around Windows if you don't like that big border, which is currently yellow on my desktop, but could be something else. You can, although Cosmic just has very bad contrast on inactive Windows. It is clearly designed to have the active hint to know where you are. If you disable it, the only thing that changes is the menus and the window buttons, and I don't think that is noticeable enough, so I would personally keep it on, but you decide what you want to do. You can hide the maximize or the minimize buttons as well, though you cannot remove those Windows buttons onto the other side of the window. And you also have some focus options where, for example, the focused window follows your cursor, and you have the delay that you can tweak around that. It's basic, but it's nice. So it is no KDE in terms of the number of options. You, for example, don't have a global menu option in there. You don't have little applets you can place on your desktop itself. It's just a lot less customizable. You don't have as many applets that you can add right now, but it's way above what GNOME offers by default if you don't use extensions. I would compare it to something like Cinnamon, maybe, in terms of what you can do with the layout. I think that is enough for a first draft, but I do expect them to add more options as time goes on, to be that sort of middle-of-the-road option between GNOME and KDE. Currently, it's closer to GNOME plus a few extensions than it is to KDE, but it's not that far off. Now, of course, one of the main reasons you might want to use Cosmic is the tiling features that it offers. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know I'm not a big fan of tiling window managers. I don't want my windows being tiled all the time. That doesn't fit my workflow. I like using a mouse. I don't want to use mostly a keyboard to move windows around. I like having a full desktop experience with its panels and stuff like that. I don't want to have to find my own or change that. It's just not for me. But tiling features are extremely useful, and Cosmic, in my opinion, is the best desktop for that kind of stuff. It's very simple to see. All you have to do is click on that little tiling applet and click Tile the current workspace. And there you are, you have a full tiling window manager, complete with keyboard shortcuts, where you can just use super plus arrow keys to navigate between windows. You can use super plus up and down for changing to another workspace. You can use shift plus super to move windows around if that's what you want to do. It's just very easy. It also works with a mouse if you want. You can even keep dragging windows on top of one another if you want to create stacks, so you'll have tabs in your window manager for those windows that are tiled. Every new window you open on that workspace will also be tiled. By default, it will be added to a group, but you can obviously just move it around and place it wherever you want. That is really solid. You can also decide to have tiled workspaces and untiled workspaces. Here, for example, if I open a new window, it's not going to be tiled by default because that workspace isn't tiled. In the appearance settings, for example, I can change the size of the window hint if I want it larger or smaller, and I can thus also increase or reduce the gap around tiled windows. If I want a more spacious layout, I can have that, and if I want something really close with almost no borders, I can have that too. I think it looks really nice, I think it works really well as well. It's just a very useful feature set to have, and when you're done, you just untile stuff and you have all your floating windows back again. And even when you're being tiled, you can still toggle a floating window. So for example, if I want that window manager floating, I just hit super plus G and I have that window all alone floating above everything that is tiled. And if I press super plus G again, it is being tiled once again. And then you just reorder stuff however you want. I just really love this feature set. After using it for a few hours, I can't really see myself not having that feature set on my desktop. I could have my editing workspace where everything is floating because I just have a giant DaVinci Resolve window in the background and some floating window managers here and there to drag stuff to my media bin, but I could also just have a tiled workspace with my note-taking app, my web browser, a file manager, a terminal so I can test things out, look things up, write stuff, maybe have a little video player in the bottom. It's just really, really useful, and no other desktop comes close to offering this wide variety of use cases and functionality. It is the strength of Cosmic, and it is, I think, what will draw people to it. Now, of course, if full tiling is not for you, you still have the usual corner tiling or half-size tiling or maximizing by dragging up top. It just works well. You have little animations for moving windows around, which is not something that you have in a lot of places on the desktop. When you change the appearance of the panel, for example, as we've seen previously, it just jitters and jumps around. So stuff isn't necessarily always very well animated. Moving in and out of settings pages, there's no animations there. Stuff like that isn't implemented yet, but I'm pretty sure that's something they'll get to at some point with a toggle to disable it. Anyway, you have all that functionality in there. I think it's fantastic, and just for that, I am very likely to try moving my entire workflow to Cosmic to see if it can help. Now, what is important there is that Cosmic is a Wayland-only desktop. You do not have an X11 session on Cosmic. They will never add it. This is logical. They created it for release in 2025 or maybe 2026, but it's something that they just don't want to spend the time on, and it is totally understandable. But you do have to run some X11-only apps, and that's why you have this compatibility setting here, which lets you bypass the need for the global keyboard shortcuts portal, which can definitely make some apps harder to use. So you can decide that all keyboard shortcuts will be passed to all X11 apps. This is basically a keylogger, that's what X11 allows, but at least it makes your applications work as you'd expect. And you can also optimize the scaling, specifically letting the applications scale themselves, which means they might just not be scaled at all. You can let the compositor scale them, meaning they might be blurry, or you have a middle-of-the-road option that lets certain apps be scaled and some others not scaled. So you'll have to try them on to see what works best for your needs. Personally, I don't really see any issues because I mostly run stuff that is supported on Wayland, but we'll see in the future if I decide to move to PopOS if that becomes a problem and if these options become more relevant. But of course, it does mean that if you absolutely need certain features of X11, you can't really use Cosmic or PopOS with Cosmic because you're not gonna get those features in there. For me personally, I don't care. I've been using Wayland for, I think, 4 or 5 years now. It just works, so I don't have any problems on my setup, but I know that for other people, this will be a barrier. Now, as per the default applications, you get a very basic bare-bones file manager. It has grid view, it has list view, it has a few options to sort, zoom, whatever. The settings are extremely basic in there. You do have file search built in as well, and a bunch of menus, which is how Cosmic does the menu. They're basically in a sort of header bar in there. I like the look, I think it's fine. It doesn't have many options. You at least have tabs and viewing options and a few settings in there, plus a sidebar with shortcuts, but it's very, very basic. It is even more basic than the GNOME file manager currently, and way more basic than Dolphin as well. Now, you do have a basic terminal. It does support profiles, which is nice because that's something that a lot of people use and need. And it also has a few settings that let you tweak how it looks, the background opacity, if you prefer your terminal to be sort of transparent. You have a few options here and there. Honestly, for my needs, it's way more than enough. It's a good terminal. It does the basic stuff a terminal does. And if you have a preferred app, you can install it through FlatHub. You also have a very basic text editor. It doesn't do much. It does have some Git management features if you need that, but I think most people will just use another text editor if they need to edit files in a Git repo. It's a very simple one, but it has the merit of existing and letting you edit a few files on the fly without having to install something on top. Now you do have the Cosmic App Store, which is again, very bare bones app store. It does what you need. You can just open an applications page. You can see screenshots if it has any. You have the source right there, although it doesn't always work. For example, VLC appears twice, one for the Flatpak and one for the system version, but in most cases it's fine. You have the useful links when they exist. It's okay. It also handles updates for your system and for your applications, which is nice. I don't have any because I applied all of them. And it also lets you see all your installed applications, which you can't uninstall from that view. You have to click on each of them, which is not great. You also have a section for applets that lets you expand your panel up top. I think that's cool. You already have a clipboard manager, a system monitor, a little classic menu, a weather widget, stuff like that. So you can already sort of add stuff to there. In terms of other apps, you have a basic media player, which does what you'd expect, and then it's just applications grabbed from other desktops. In PopOS, you get LibreOffice, you get the document viewer, which is the one from GNOME. You also get GNOME's image viewer as well. They install Thunderbird for email. You also get a bunch of various little preferences for managing printers, for iBus, for the disk usage. Just all of that stuff that they don't have a native Cosmic app for. They pre-install something generally from GNOME or from another desktop entirely. It's fine. The app selection is more than fine, but the default Cosmic apps are super basic. That's normal, it's the first iteration of that desktop, but honestly, if even GNOME's feature set is too little for you, the default Cosmic apps will be sorely lacking. Fortunately, you do have the ability to change the default apps for all of those roles, so you can decide to install Nautilus or Dolphin or any other file manager you prefer. Same goes for the text editor, same goes for the terminal, so it's not a big issue. You have access to Flatpaks and other apps in the repos of PopOS or on the distro you run Cosmic on. It works, it's fine, like, it's a default. It does need to improve over time. They can't stay like that. It does have a bunch of gaps in terms of the stuff that you can do with those apps, but for a first version, it's fine. So Cosmic is a good desktop, but let's talk a little bit about PopOS, which there's not a lot to say here. It is based on Ubuntu LTS, that's why it's called 24.04 LTS, even though it releases in 25.12, which is a shame. That naming convention doesn't make any sense. But they do update a lot of stuff that is necessary for that older base to still run on current devices. So they have the latest Mesa drivers, the latest NVIDIA drivers. They have the kernel 6.17 currently. The latest version, I think, as well of that one. And they also supplement a lot of stuff from their own repos to make sure that you still have some current packages. So they have their extra sources for applications and for specific PopOS stuff, which means they can update, for example, the Cosmic desktop themselves. And they do ship some proprietary apps, like, for example, I think Slack and other things are in there. They do enable FlatHub by default and a Cosmic Flatpak repo, which will give you probably the Cosmic apps that you can install from there. So you're not stuck to the older LTS base. It is not as old as Ubuntu LTS, and I don't think it will be much of a problem for most people to run that. Although, of course, if you want to install stuff from the repos, you will end up having access to very old versions of libraries, of development tools and stuff like that. So use Flatpak, use app images, but don't install stuff from the repos. It's super old. Fortunately, with PopOS 26.04 that will release early next year, you'll have a newer base. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to upgrade in place from 24.04. So this will no longer be a problem, and I don't think it really is one currently. Install your apps with Flatpaks and just wait for the update for the Cosmic desktop from Cosmic's repos. You already have a recent kernel, recent drivers, so you should be able to run that on any computer without any problem. So to conclude on Cosmic and PopOS, I love what they've done. It is a fantastic first draft of a desktop. It is still a first draft. The applications are bare bones, the settings are very bare bones, and you can clearly see that some stuff is not animated as it should be, some stuff isn't as smooth as it should be. There are some performance problems when opening and closing apps. Not sure if it's OBS, but as I said, it also happens inside of virtual machines, so there might be something there. But it is a functional one, the tiling features are awesome, the fact that it's a full Wayland-only system is also pretty cool to me because you don't have all that legacy spaghetti code for X11 dragging you back. And also it is something being built by a company which has different incentives when they sell laptops and desktops with PopOS and Cosmic pre-installed. People are going to demand bugs be fixed, improvements be added, settings be added. And they'll have to do it, because if they don't, they're just not supporting their customers properly. Compared to a community-based system like KDE or GNOME, where it's volunteer work mostly. Doesn't mean they don't listen to their users, but they have less incentive to do so if no one wants to work on that feature. Whereas System 76 will kind of have to implement the stuff that people want, or they'll just have disappointed customers that won't buy their stuff ever again. Anyway, that's all for this full look at PopOS 24.04 and the first version of Cosmic. It's nice, but if you don't like Wayland and if you need a bunch of options, it's just not quite ready yet unless you want to replace a bunch of the default apps with other things. It is still an impressive first version, and I think it will fit the needs of a lot of people. So, thank you all for watching. You know where all the YouTube buttons are, you know why you should click them. You also have plenty of links in the description to support the channel. And in the meantime, I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!